What's up, guys? In this video, I'm going to show you how to do the Sandopolis 2 stair clip with all three characters. So the first thing you're going to want to do is bump into this pillar here, and that'll give you the perfect starting position. Go ahead and charge a full speed spin dash, release it, and on this frame, you're going to want to jump and hold the jump for 4 frames before releasing. And Sonic will go right through. This is the first frame. This frame also works. Now, keep in mind, this is only for a full speed spin dash. If we do anything slower, like let's say we charge to 100%, but then our release is 1 frame late, then this frame right here doesn't work. What happens is he just does not have enough horizontal speed in order to bump into the wall, which is a requirement for the clip to work, because if you have any horizontal speed whatsoever, you'll just land on the floor. However, this second frame right here does still work. And that's because we're closer to the wall by the time we start the jump. If we try to jump from this frame, we're actually just going to bump the wall before that. He doesn't have enough height to clear that corner. So essentially, you're going to want to target a perfect spin dash here. And that'll give you a 2 frame window here to start your jump. But obviously the jump release is still a 1 frame timing. So if you can get a perfect spin dash, you'll have some leeway on the jump. So you have a 2 frame window followed by a 1 frame window. If you get something slower, it's basically 2 1 frame windows back to back. Once you go through, you'll land in this spot here, and there's a gap in front of you as well as some solid ground over to the right. That's what we want to stand on. So if you just walk forward, you'll fall into this gap and you'll wind up coming down here. And this is bad, right? Because then you're going to have to hit the sand and wait for it to rise up, and you're going to waste a lot of time. There is also a light switch right here. If you grab this, then it's not too bad if you have the lightning shield, because then you could just jump and then lightning shield here, and you could just do the screen wrap. If you don't have the lightning shield, you could actually just land on this platform, but since you can't see it, you kind of have to already know where it is in the cycle. So, I mean, it's kind of worth learning the cycles anyway for this level. But yeah, ideally we don't want to fall into this gap at all. So once you land in this spot, there's a couple things you can do here. Well, actually 3 things you can do. If you have the lightning shield, it's very trivial. You just hold right and jump at the same time. Just do a full jump and you'll bump into a ceiling. Once you bump into the ceiling, just do the lightning jump and you'll get across pretty easily. Once you get across, stop holding right, because if you hold right, you'll zip to the left by mistake. So just hold right, jump, lightning jump, and then release to neutral. If you're here and hold right, that happens. So you want to be here and then hold left. You'll zip like that. The next thing we want to do is, let's see, try and correct my position here. If you jump here, just so you're aware, you won't go through, but if you have any horizontal speed, you will land up there. So just keep that in mind. You could make this gap with a normal jump, it is possible, however you do risk falling into the gap. And just so you know where this gap is, if I move forward such that the letter I in time or rings is touching that the wall there where the sand is, if you walk a little bit further past this, that's where the gap is. So we don't want to wind up in that position. If you don't have the lightning shield here, you can very easily get across with a spin dash jump. Like that. Then hold left, and you'll zip into this area right here. So that's pretty simple. Next, I'm going to show you this trick with Knuckles. And this is actually the exact same sequence of inputs with Knuckles. The only thing that changes is the start position, because Knuckles has a lower jump height than Sonic does. So we have to compensate for that by changing our start position. The reference that I use is there are two pillars in the background, and in between them there's some shadow. I align the left dreadlock with a bit of that shadow, and that's my start position. There should be a small gap between Knuckles and the pillar. So we're going to want to do the same thing, charge a full speed spin dash. And for Knuckles, this is slightly different. So instead of this being the first frame, it's actually this one right here. Remember, we have to compensate for his jump height by changing our start position. So because our start position is slightly further back, the first frame on the jump is also going to be slightly further back by one frame. This frame also works. So just keep that in mind. It's this frame right here is the first one, and then this one is the second one. This one would normally be the first frame with Sonic, and this one would be the second one. But obviously, Knuckles, his jump height is too low, so we'll wind up bumping into that wall right there. And just like with Sonic, if you don't have a perfect spin dash, that happens. So essentially this becomes a one frame jump. That second frame still works. Once you get in here, you could do the same thing as Sonic. You could just do a spin dash jump, or you can glide over and grab this wall. Once you grab the wall, you can just hold down and drop, and then you can do a zip like that. You can also drop the glide if you know exactly where the floor is. You can actually drop the glide before you grab the wall, and then you can skip having to hold down. But you should only do that if you're comfortable and you know exactly where the floor is. Next, I'm going to show you the trick with Tails, and this is where things get a bit different because Tails, technically, you know, the setup starts out the same as Sonic because his jump height is identical to Sonic's, but things get a lot more different because his hitbox, when you do a roll jump, it only sinks downward 1 pixel, whereas with Sonic and Knuckles, theirs sinks down 5 pixels. So because of that, if we use the same setup as Sonic, Tails, his hitbox will not be low enough to actually clip through the floor. So I'm just going to show that real quick. Normally, this is the first frame where Sonic would jump from. Do a 4-frame jump release, and he'll clip through that edge there, but as you can see, he's too high up. He doesn't go through. So this is the first frame, that's the second one with Sonic. And that looks like he's going to go through, right? Because he bumps into the wall before he descends low enough to land. But unfortunately, his position is still too high up. So if we try to do the jump release for 3 frames, this happens. He'll bump into that. He'll start to clip, but then he'll bump into the wall because this is a curved edge. The actual collision of this edge is almost identical to what the graphic shows you. It is actually curved. So unfortunately, neither of these frames will work. He'll bump the wall in that instance, and in this frame, I actually messed up my speed there. Did rewind a little bit too much. So yeah, that will happen. He'll start to clip and then bump into a wall there. So how do we get around this? Well, obviously the answer is flight because it's the only thing Tails can do during his jump that is different from the other characters. So we need to do our jump release in 3 frames as opposed to 4, and then we're going to want to use flight in order to compensate for the height difference. We need flight to delay his descent such that he doesn't bump into the wall here. He gains slightly a little bit more height, just enough to clear the wall right here, but not enough to be too high up for the clip to not work. And in order to do this, we're actually going to jump from a different position. So this is the first frame of the release. If I jump here, I get a straight jump. So one frame passes when I release, and then I jump, straight jump. So obviously we don't want that. But on this frame, the second frame, we won't get a straight jump. This is the first frame that works with tails. So 1, 2, 3, and then release. And obviously he'll land like that because we're jumping from way far to the left sooner than what Sonic would do. So clearly he doesn't have enough horizontal speed in order to clear this before he bumps into the wall. So we're going to want to use the flight to make up the difference here. So flight right here, that'll work. This position right here will work. This position also works. So 1 and 2. So it's actually a 2-frame window here on this flight. Again, he's mostly clipped into this. It's pretty distinctive. You can look at just look at tails in relation to the floor. This is the first frame. If you get a full speed spin dash, and if you jump on the first possible frame after the straight jump, and then this is the second frame. Now things change if you jump from a different position. So this was the first frame, I believe. Let's just make sure our speed is good. This is the first frame. So if we jump on this frame, then of course the flight timing is going to be 1 frame later. So if we were to try something like this, and note that the actual reference here, it is slightly different because his position is not exactly the same. But this kind of looks similar to what we saw before. If we try to fly there, that doesn't work. He's too high up. So wait a little bit more until he's more like clipped into the edge here. And that doesn't work. But if we wait until this position, it works. Right there and right there. Those 2 frames both work. 1 and 2. If we're here, it's too late. He'll start to descend a little bit too soon. So this right here is the second frame. Tails is actually unique in that he gets more than 2 frames on this jump. Now, you're going to see this again. If you try and jump on that 3rd frame, he's going to bump into the wall again, like this. But that's only if we get a full speed spin dash. If we don't get a full speed spin dash, we actually have a larger window here. So wait 1 frame and then release. If we jump here, this is the first frame. We still have roughly the same window. The visual reference looks slightly different because we do have a different spin dash speed, but we still have the same timing. It's actually a little bit earlier there, so that's, let's see. It's the frame after that. This is the first frame right here. That works. And this right here is the second frame. That works. Second frame on the jump. Now remember, the timing on the flight is going to be delayed if you jump later. So that was too early. Let's try that frame. That's perfect. So that was the first frame. This right here is the first frame. This is going to be the second one. And so on. Basically, the later, see this frame 2, frame 3. The later you have to jump, the later you have to time this flight. So this is probably the first frame. That's probably the first frame, and this will be the second one. And that goes through. So you can see how the spin dash speed, if it's not perfect, you actually have a larger window of time. So once again, this is the second frame right here, third. Let's try the fourth one. And there you go. That fourth one, that's when he actually starts to bump the wall. So with the second fastest spin dash speed, Tails actually has a 3-frame window on his jump. But then you have to follow that up with a 1-frame jump release and then a 2-frame flight where the window changes depending on what frame you got your jump on. Obviously, um, if you jump earlier, then the flight has to be slightly earlier. If you jump later, the flight has to be a bit later. Um, this trick does not save that much time with Tails. I would not recommend doing this unless you get very good at it. But it doesn't really save that much time with him. I'm just showing it just to show you the method, and you can play around with it. If you get really good at it, then go for it. But otherwise, I would say just fly up with Tails. Tails gets up um, in this area. He climbs that ascent way faster than any other character. So um, it's pretty speedy either way if you go that route. But yeah, that's how you do the Sandopolis stair clip with all 3 characters. And if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to me.